If you don't help me, I'm going to my car and get something to unalive you. That's what that NCO shared with me when I became a first sergeant in this large sustainment organization. This is how that non-commissioned officer decided to communicate to me. Hey, teammates, this Command Sergeant Major retired LaDerrick Green. I want to share with you a unique story. And this one is about organizational stress, decision making, culture, and a list of other things all combined into one shared story. So my first job as a first sergeant at this sustainment organization, responsible for sustainment across the Army. And I was kind of upset that I had been selected for that position because I had multiple years in combat at this point in time. And that's all I wanted to be, was directly with soldiers and going on the next rotation down range. And somehow someone made the decision that I had so much deployment time that the organization could learn from me and my experience as a senior leader. And so I was placed in this sustainment organization in Virginia, and kind of upset when I got there, but I'll tell you, it was one of the most rewarding experiences that I had. So this NCO was a sergeant from the Blue Ridge Mountains, had come from some really destitute circumstances, really didn't learn how to communicate effectively, it appears to me, at that point in time when he grew up. So he joined the Army, somehow made it to the grade of sergeant on his own, with a little help from the organization, I would imagine. And he found himself no longer at a ground level organization. He was inside this large sustainment formation, and the requirements was well above what he was used to and intellectually capable of doing at that point in time in his career. Found later this NCO suffered from, also he was on the spectrum, right, for as in how he communicated with us, get frustrated and really couldn't get words out. And so he would just resort to an extreme emotion, which was a outcry for help. Now, being that he said this thing to me, came into my office, was frustrated about something, really didn't articulate what it was. And when I asked a few probing questions, there was this statement to me: I'll unalive you. I'll go to my car, get something to unalive you, and come back right now. Now, I just shared with you I was in combat at this time over 5 years. And I was used to soldiers stressing out and coming, with inside of a combat environment based off things that were occurring at home. So it was kind of common to me. So I communicated to that soldier in such a way how that probably wouldn't be a good idea for him. And the repercussions behind that, outside of just the punishment under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and how I wasn't just going to sit back and take it, he kind of calmed down at that point, and we had a really good conversation. If you ever listened to some of my other videos, and I talked about a listening session, and that was one of the opportunities that I had to talk to this non-commissioned officer. And what had occurred was, over time, nobody invested into him. And so when he went to a professional military education school, and he failed about twice, I think it was 2 times. And at that point in time, you had to get a waiver to go back. No one wanted to give him a waiver. I was the new first sergeant there. We were in an organization, he was a maintenance person, and we were in an organization that wrote maintenance doctrine for the Army. So I was confident that we had enough warrant officers in this organization and senior non-commissioned officers that can walk him through his challenges, teach, coach, and mentor him, and set him up for success, get the commander to sign a waiver for him to go back to school to be promoted. So the biggest thing was just educating him. That was one problem. 2, this non-commissioned officer had fell in love and married a young lady. She didn't speak much English, but so she was solely dependent on him. And he wasn't a person that managed his finances the way he should. Obviously, he didn't have it growing up. When he came in the Army, managing finances, it depends on where you are. A lot of leaders, I won't say a lot, some focus more on productivity, production versus the individual themselves. And so he found himself in also destitute straits. And so he was challenged with providing for this new wife that he married and brought to this country. He had a limited amount of income and found himself in debt, credit card debt. So that came to bear as well. So stresses from probably one of his first loves that he described it to me. Stresses from if he didn't go to school and pass this school, how he would be separated from the Army. At that time, it was if he would have failed that school, if we gave him a waiver and he failed again, it'd be, I think it was 12 months and 1 day from that failure that he would fall under the quality management program and be out the Army with a new wife and no way to provide for himself. So all of those things had came to bear, and the only way he knew to communicate to someone was through some form of a threat, right? So what did I have to do? So with this non-commissioned officer, again, I shared with you that I'm in an organization that was responsible for all things sustainment. I got a really talented senior non-commissioned officer and a warrant officer to drill down on the things that he wasn't proficient in when he went to his PME. And what it came down to was he was not familiar with these things they call wiring harnesses, right? It's like a long chart and you're troubleshooting things and it tells you what step next. If that fails, then next step. And sometimes these things can go pages and pages. Hopefully they got it automated now. But I mean, sometimes depending on if you don't find the problems, it can go on and on and on. So it's like a little wiring diagram. And if you trace your finger the wrong way, fat finger it, you end up off in Pluto or somewhere. How I understood it. I was a transporter, not a maintenance person, but that's how it was. So being that he had a intellectual disability or on the spectrum, his attention was such that he would get frustrated, angry, and didn't follow through with it. So it was just repetition after repetition after repetition. And we built a training program from inside of our organization. And we placed him, he was inside of my staff, put him at the training NCO so I can provide some oversight of him. I looked at this as an opportunity for me, right? All the people that had, and if you listen to my video, all the people that had invested into me up until this point, and I told you how I joined the Army and didn't get things right. Many days I would come to work wanting to do the right things. However, things kind of ended up wrong, and it took a non-commissioned officer to invest into me. Well, many years later after deployment, etc., this was another opportunity in which I can put it all on the line. Why do I say put it all on the line? Because some leaders could approach this much different. Someone makes such a threat, and we had a series of behavioral health and things that he needed to go through as well. So it was taking care of the management part of his school, and then also the human psyche portion, relevant assessments, making sure that I get feedback from those that are assessing him for his mental capacity to make sure that he's not a danger to himself nor the organization. And at the same time, as he's going through those things, a level of financial counseling, mapping out how much he makes, his bills and all those types of things, and giving him a plan that calmed his personality, right? And come to find out, it was just a couple $1,000s. So he looked at a couple $1,000s because he didn't have much when he came into the Army. He thought that was some huge unsurmountable debt. It was just maybe $2,000 or $3,000 to put things into perspective. So not a big problem at all to solve. So again, this was just an opportunity to me. Unlike some I just didn't want to not invest it to him. I could have easily wrote him off, recommended to the commander, a punishment under Uniform Code of Military Justice, non-commissioned officer separated, new family, etc., and no telling what would happen to the young lady himself. Just looking at deductive reasoning, how that could have played out in American society, her life, and then his life as well, because he at that time wasn't mentally stable. So again, if I was, there are some leaders that that's a significant amount of risk that a person would have to take on. And if you're a person that don't believe in investing into people, if you don't understand fully that you're there to enable people like that, those are the situations that you're there. Not the easy situations that are easily solved. Send them somewhere, they go to some counseling and come back and everything's solved. These are the problems with senior leaders, and to include executives. if you're in an executive organization that outside the military are there for, right? At different levels. So if you're dealing with somebody at the tactical level or direct level of leadership, you're going to find problems similar to this as well, whether it's communicated to you or not. So I didn't mind, when I say putting it all on the line, it was like a wiring harness to me, right? So wiring harness type leadership, troubleshoot, this doesn't work, send him here, do these things. So as he was learning how to track the wiring harness to repair a vehicle, I look at it like a wiring harness type leadership. What are the things that I need to do as we trace things down? What are the resources that I can bring to bear, me as a leader, leverage to provide to him, not send him off somewhere and they just take care of him and tell me the back brief. No, a leader that's the center of gravity, leveraging these resources to bring it to bear, to take care of this troop so he can take care of himself, his family, the formation, the Army, and the American people. And that's exactly what I did. The outcome of that story is this non-commissioned officer, after it was almost about a year of training, back and forth, etc. Every time we had spare time, I had him right there going through these wiring harnesses and diagrams and maintenance processes, etc. Schedule some time with a warrant officer for the more technical things, and then a senior non-commissioned officer that can add that intuition, because he had a lot of maintenance experience, right? Working on vehicles and all those type things. Was a very talented mechanic, but when it came down to the science of it, he just wasn't there. He knew the problem, probably could fix it himself. He couldn't tell you how it was. He couldn't tell you about a wiring harness or nothing like that. So this is another example also of a person having some relevant experience that are getting outcomes as it relates to maintenance. You can track it back to his life, for us in the culture, for us in how he grew up. But when it came to testing on it, he just wasn't a good tester. And so we had to fix those things for him. So sometimes you can have the relevant experience, right? The analytical experience, but not have it's not really analytical. You can have the intuition, I would say. You can have the intuitive experience from where you grew up, worked as a mechanic, learned things from your family, etc. Came into the Army, kind of knew the basics of maintenance, the fundamentals, but you couldn't master the fundamentals as it relates to the technical aspects of things. You were more intuition versus less on the analytical parts. I think that's a better way to describe this problem. And so we had to get him there from an analytical perspective. He had the experience, hands-on, etc. But when you start talking about doctrine, due to his disability, he just couldn't get there. So we solved that with a group of senior leaders. From the behavioral health perspective, we had some really talented behavioral health specialists, etc. A lot of monitoring this non-commissioned officer to ensure, again, that he wasn't a threat to himself or no one else. Ensuring that he took care of his family, had a strategy for that, paid off that little couple $1,000. He needed to get a job, right? An additional job. And that takes an approval in the Army. You can't just work and then you get off work and go to another job. At that time, I don't know what it is in the Army now. If you needed a second job, you had to get the approval from the commander. And that was a simple thing. He may have worked that 1 year. I think he worked as delivering pizza and things of that nature, some small little job for a couple hours. And over the course of the year, not only did he pay off his debt, he had a nice little savings that he could take care of his family and be comfortable with it. Long story short, we sent this non-commissioned officer back to his professional military education course. And this non-commissioned officer graduated that course successful and almost made, believe it or not, undergrad. I tell you, so I want you to think about that narrative and how that kind of played out. So all of us sometimes are under stress, and there's always a certain level of stress that we all need to keep us going, to motivate us. They call that a healthy level of stress. Just if you have columns and you had a big cinder block sitting on top of those columns, you need some pressure on them to hold them in place. But you don't need so much pressure that it puts so much weight on those columns where they break. And that's where a talented leader come in. How much stress can I put on this non-commissioned officer, this person, to make them the best versions of themselves However, at the same time, not break them. That is what they call an art. It's not a science, it's an art. It comes from experience over time. How do you get the most out of people? Also, how do I align, because we talk about culture, right? Other non-commissioned officers and warrant officers that have the technical experience, but also come from a background where they can relate to this non-commissioned officer. And so it's like that wiring harness, right? What are the interests, behaviors, fears, needs, wants, desires of this non-commissioned officer from that listening session? And what other non-commissioned officers and senior leaders have a similar story that he can connect to, grow trust within these leaders. And once he can grow that trust between these leaders and him, then he's more open to the analytical aspect of what he needed to learn with regards to his education. And that's what I had to do. And this comes from, again, leaders in our organization should know their people. Regardless of what size of your organization, you should know the centers of gravity and where are these informal leaders inside of your organization that you can bring their knowledge, skills, ability to bear to solve problems for non-commissioned officers, their families, soldiers, etc., American people, even if that comes to bear in its defense. So thought I just want to kind of share that story with you. I guess the larger statement is, how are we as people interacting with those in our community that clearly need help, right? Are we being our authentic self and really to put it on the line for a friend? Are we really those that are willing to go the extra mile to put it on the line for even a person that you don't know for the greater good? Or are we the type of people that, and in my opinion, and this is my opinion, if the statement, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a brave man only dies once, every time we see a problem, we go back to egocentric thinking and thinking about, well, this might impact me personally. The hell with them. I know I could help, but this could be something that may injure me. Now, I'll tell you what, that's a hell of a way to live. There's no way possible for me as a human being, not just a leader, as a human being inside of a community, even before I joined the Army. If you listen to my story, how my mom cared for people, etc., the hard work from my grandfather and all of that, and how they took care of people, took care of us, it goes back to core values. Now, if you're the type of person that are egocentric thinker, and every time a problem presents itself, even though you have the knowledge, skills, and ability and resources to resolve it, you start thinking about yourself, that's a core value issue, in my opinion. Now, you can overcome those challenges, but they say the only way you can overcome a miseducation or something that has happened inside of your life that's shaped your core values, and that's who we interact with thereafter, how we form friends, etc. Those are similar cultural traits that, based off how we were raised. These are the types of people that we hang around, because that's why they say that, if I want to know who you are, just share with me who your friends are, right? If you're the type of person that are thinking about yourself and are fearful each time a problem presents itself and you have the ability to solve it, and somehow you decide to go back into yourself and just think about you, the only way they say that you can change that is a significant emotional event happening in your life. Because all of us, we're not the perfect person. There was only one perfect being, if you believe in religion, that walked the face of this earth. And this person lived an even life. And so this even life is what we all strive for. Sometimes life goes above the line and you get really happy. Sometimes it goes below the line and you get sad. You do bad things and bad things happen. And that's why some people say when it rains, it pours. It's not that it rains, it pours. It's because you failed to learn the lesson from the first time it happened to you. And so not only is this thing keeps happening to you, and then another thing happened, then another thing happened. You haven't learned from none of those three, and then the fourth thing happens. It's an inability to learn a lesson. And if you keep going below that line, at some point, this perfect being has a goal for you. There's none of us that were placed on this earth, right, to just fumble through life and some kind of way fall over and not impact anything or anyone in our lives. All of us have a mission. All of us have a mission and a unique talent to accomplish that mission. And it's up to leaders to help you find those things. It's up to other people to interact with you to help you find those things. It's up to you to have the will and desire to become a better person. Because if you don't, that perfect being will put something in your life that you can't get around. You can't go over, you can't go under it. And it's going to change the fundamental way you view the world. The fundamental way you view the world. It could be death of a loved one that you've been around for and that significantly contributed to your life. It could be the death of someone else that was significant in your life. It can be a significant event in your life which puts you in a place where you can barely provide the basic resources for yourself and your family, and it changes that lens on how you view the world. And it puts you back on glide path to accomplishing that purpose that you were placed on this earth to actually accomplish. That's how life, in my opinion, works. So in my opinion, all the things that happened before I made it to that position in that side of that organization put me on glide path to help this non-commissioned officers and others like him, just like everything that happened in other leaders' life, put them on glide path to help me, to put me on that track, if that makes sense to you. Well, I just want to kind of get your thoughts on all of that. Have you had an experience to whereas you had to make a decision of what are you willing to sacrifice for your conviction? Because a lot of times, in our lives, we have a lot of things going on, I would say, because being a human being is complex. And one of the best things we can do for each other is speak positive language, call things into fruition. In the Army, we have things that we use positive language like high speed, right? Calling NCOs, and sometimes soldiers and NCOs we call high speed. They're not really high speed at that point in time. Some of them are really high speed. So you look at the word high speed, and you put that in context of a vehicle that's moving real fast. It's a person that moves. They follow orders. They just want to make you happy as a leader, and they move faster than the speed of decision. They know you told them to accomplish X, and they're going to accomplish X at all cost. And we'll talk to that person like, hey, come here, high speed, because you know they mean well, right? And you know that you have what they call that referent power, where they don't want to be seen as a failure in your eyes. And the only reason that they're doing these things because they want to make you happy, right? So they moving faster than what I would like to say the speed of decision, right? Even though we have time to think through these things, because we're not at combat at this point in time, we have time to analyze things, bringing other leaders. Sometimes when you have a person that's junior and they just want to make you happy, they move faster than the speed of decision and sometimes find themselves in a little bit of trouble, break a lot of things. But that's part of the learning process. And speaking these things to power, come here, high speed, because believe it or not, that's a positive language for them. And they understand that versus come here, you dumbass. Much different language. So how are we using one of the most powerful weapons that we have, which is the tongue? How we speak to each other, how we communicate to each other, whether you're a service member or you're a member of the community, to call positive things into fruition. I would love to get your thoughts on that. I look forward to hearing from you again. This is Command Sergeant Major Retired Derek Green. Looking forward to at least socializing with some of you guys in the future. Thank you.